Good day, everyone. I am Arjun Mitiarsalon, the reporter from Group 6. And the lesson that have been given to our group is all about the principles of teaching vocabulary. So we know already on how important it is to know and understand the importance of teaching vocabulary. There are 5 things we are going to tackle this afternoon, and it is all about the importance of vocabulary, the types of vocabulary, approaches to teaching vocabulary. The fourth one is the effective or the key principles in teaching vocabulary, and the last one is the materials we are going to use in teaching vocabulary. But before we go beyond in our lesson, let us know first and what is vocabulary? What is the true meaning of vocabulary? So first thing here is vocabulary is all of the words known and used by a person, the words that make up a language, a list of collection of words or of words and phrases, usually alphabetically arranged and explained or defined. So, it means that the vocabulary are those words we used in writing and speaking and listening and any other thing that we utter words or we produce words. So it means that we are nothing without vocabulary because vocabulary is the basis for communication. We can interact or socialize to other people without vocabulary. So much for that. Let's move on to the importance of vocabulary. There are 4 importance of vocabulary. First is vocabulary is the basis for communication.
So, nothing can be done without vocabulary. Vocabulary is the basis for communication. According to Sullivan and Alba 2010, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. And it is true that it means that vocabulary is our tool in communicating to each other. So without vocabulary, we are nothing. We have nothing to say, we have nothing to write, especially in school, in oral recitation. How can we express our thoughts and ideas if we have no vocabulary? So how can we interact to each other, interact to our teacher without vocabulary? So vocabulary play a vital role in our lives or in every lives of the people because we can communicate to other individual like for example in our family. We can express our thoughts and ideas and share our problems to our family without vocabulary. That's why vocabulary is the basis for communication. According to the statement of Sullivan and Alba 2010, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Yes, because especially here in Philippines, some of the Filipinos are very sensitive in grammar. If someone says something with a correct grammar, he or she can say, "Oh my God, she or he is very clever." But if someone says without correct grammar, "Oh my God, it is not interesting. It is so boring." But at least some or there are little people who understand the message of that specific person, even if there is no correct grammar. But if without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, the people cannot understand your feelings, your thoughts, or ideas within you. That's why vocabulary is very important. Second is vocabulary as the reflection of social reality. It is crucial to take into account reasons for treating language in general to be taught as a tool of social interaction. So the reality of human thought seems to be grasped through a language. So this indicates that the word choice in our communication is definitely determined by our experiences. The more we expose to many things, the more chances that we can hone a plenty of vocabularies. Imagine a children or our learners have a limited number of vocabularies. It is also possible that she or he have also a limited number of experiences. That's why she has or he has a limited number of vocabularies. But if our learners exposed to many experiences or has a unlimited number of experiences, it is possible that she or he has a plenty of number of vocabularies in which it will help our students for the development of their vocabulary. It is not only for our good but also to our students. That's why it is our responsibility as a teacher, it is our responsibility to provide a correct or a good materials to our students. The third one is vocabulary as a emotion booster. It suggests that the words chosen in language help people to produce and perceive the emotion. So it means that a vocabulary is a tool to express our ideas and thoughts to others. It is a tool to feel the feelings of others. Without vocabulary, we cannot feel the problems of others. Even if we see them physically sad or physically happy, but we can feel what is their true problem, because there is no vocabulary. But if there is a vocabulary, we can understand thoroughly their problem. And the last one is vocabulary is academic ability predictor. It means that the size and understanding of vocabulary knowledge are more likely to predict the academic ability. Similarly, vocabulary knowledge has been viewed as a prior ability that has to be mastered used to increase other language abilities. So through the number of vocabularies that a person have, we can predict their academic ability. Like for instance, our students, if we observe their writing activities, like for example in essay, if we read their works, we can say that, or we can categorize or define them that they are good in that specific area, that they have plenty of vocabularies. We can say that our students is good in any writing activities because they have plenty of vocabularies. And it is our task as a teacher to evaluate our students, their needs, their learning styles, in order for us to provide the materials that can suit their needs. So next is the types of vocabulary. So there are 4 types of vocabulary. Why is it important to know the types of vocabulary? Because as a teacher, it is substantial to better understand and how to teach them in any context, our learners' learning styles and needs. The first type of vocabulary is listening vocabulary. Are words usually understood during a process of language perception. So, this listening vocabulary are words that we use to understand, like for example, in videos, in movies, in YouTube. Like for example, music or any audios that required hearing, in which we understand, example the lyrics of a music, we understand the lyrics of the music because we have the listening vocabulary. The next one is speaking vocabulary. Refers to productive, active, passive words used. So this type of vocabulary are those words we used in speaking or producing messages. And it is the same with a writing vocabulary because we produce messages. We automatically this type of vocabulary are those words we automatically use in the situation of speaking and writing without stopping or forcing ourselves to remember. So the next one is reading vocabulary. Reading vocabulary is the same to listening vocabulary, in which it is the words usually understood during the process of language perception or language understanding. And the last one is writing vocabulary. As what I have said earlier that writing vocabulary and speaking vocabulary is the same. They refers to productive, past, active, and passive words used, in which those words are used during producing a messages or in speaking and writing situation. The types of vocabularies that have been mentioned above was categorized into four. So first is receptive vocabulary versus productive vocabulary. So when we say receptive vocabulary, it is defined as the type of vocabulary a reader encounters during reading and listening. They are the words which the readers and listeners use to comprehend the given messages. So when we say receptive, it is our willingness to listen and accept ideas or thoughts or suggestions. So and receptive vocabulary, those are the words we use to comprehend messages or text during reading. And also, those words we use to comprehend the text that we listened or heard. So versus productive vocabulary. When we say productive vocabulary, refers to the set of words used to produce the messages. The two basic skills naturally make use of productive vocabularies are speaking and writing. So since we came from the receptive vocabulary, we go to productive vocabulary. In receptive vocabulary, we accept or we receive ideas. But in productive vocabulary, those ideas we receive or accept are used to produce messages. Here in productive vocabulary, we became more productive by producing messages, by writing our ideas, by speaking out or voice out our thoughts in that specific situation. Those those words we utter every day, those words we produce in any situation in school or in our community is called a productive vocabulary. And also those words we receive through a conversation is the receptive vocabulary because we receive and accept ideas from others. The next is active vocabulary versus passive vocabulary. When we say active vocabulary, is the words by which listeners and writer usually use as they are completely understood. They are the words that are recalled and used at will when the situation of speech and writing requires them. So in active vocabulary, those words we used in speaking and writing or those words we automatically use in speaking and writing situation are called active vocabulary. Those words are very active. Then imagine, let's imagine those words we read from any textbooks, then we use them automatically when we speak or write are called active vocabulary. We remember them, we recall them, and they are very useful in writing and in speaking situation because in that situation we became more creative and we produce messages that the other people can understand also because we understand that vocabulary very well. That's why we use them. Versus passive vocabulary. So what is passive vocabulary? This means as the words that are not completely understood, so that they are infrequently used when writing and speaking. So those words we didn't usually used are called a passive vocabulary. Those words we didn't totally understand. And we don't want that our works will be ruined by that words. The next thing we are going to tackle is all about the approaches to vocabulary teaching. So there are two approaches to vocabulary teaching. First is implicit vocabulary teaching. Refers to a procedure of teaching in which language learners unconsciously, indirectly, and contextually learn the vocabularies. So it means that our learners always learn naturally, and it was taught without any conscious operation. So in short, it has a simple procedure. So implicit teaching so the research shows that implicit teaching will allow our students or learners to understand thoroughly the vocabulary, the definition of the vocabulary, because implicit teaching or implicit vocabulary teaching is time consuming. So the next one or the second approach to vocabulary teaching is explicit vocabulary teaching. This teaching is a conscious process of mastering the vocabulary. There has to be a direct and systematic procedure and awareness toward objectives of vocabulary learning. So this teaching, this approach of teaching is not time consuming, and it has a purpose to attain the objectives of your lesson. It requires our learners to understand the process, predict answers, and to evaluate and reflect a result. Teaching use and rules of vocabulary explicitly is better to our learners. Why? Is it because it will help them to enhance their their ability to spell the parts of the vocabulary, like for example its form, root, suffix, prefix, and many other things that they are going to discover. Explicit vocabulary teaching is chunked into three parts. So first is form based explicit teaching. It refers to the process by which forms of the vocabulary, like its free morphemes, bound morphemes, and spelling, are directly taught to the students. So this type or this part of explicit vocabulary and teaching is the teachers directly taught their students or directly teach their students about the forms, the morphemes of that specific vocabulary, because it is a form based vocabulary teaching or explicit teaching. Then the second one is meaning based explicit teaching. So it is understood as a procedure where the meaning of an intended vocabulary is taught. So the teachers here give or shows the definition of the vocabulary. The teacher teach the meaning, and so in meaning based explicit teaching, the teacher teach their students the meaning of the vocabulary and explain it well. Then the last one is role-based explicit teaching. So it is related to the teaching of vocabulary based on the rules of the vocabulary being learned. So the teacher here didn't teach only the form and meaning of the vocabulary, but also the usage of that vocabulary. It is very important that the teacher are going to teach the usage of the vocabulary to their students, so that their students can also construct their own sentence in the future or in the end of the lesson. There are five key principles in teaching vocabulary effectively. So first is focus on rich meanings, not just dictionary definitions. So as a teacher, it is our responsibility to teach our students effectively on vocabulary. So we should not stick only on the definition of the vocabulary, but we have to find ways on how to teach our students effectively, especially if our students have different learning styles. So we are going to find ways or techniques on how to teach them. Like for example, we are going to let them explain or find meanings of that specific words. And also we are going to let them know or find the synonyms of that words, the antonyms if there is, and also what part of speech that vocabulary. If that vocabulary is a noun, a verb, adjectives, like that. And in this principle, our students learn more extensive, complex definitions and explain the word meanings. So, as a teacher, it is good that we are going to encourage them to refer the encyclopedia meanings than dictionary meanings. And the second one is emphasize the connection among words. So as a teacher, we are going to emphasize the connection among words, the connection between that vocabulary to other words. So like for example, a gasoline. If there is a gasoline, so the connection of that word is a car, a vehicle, a wheel. So we already emphasize or the importance of the connection of that words. So the third one is promote the usage of the words. So it is not only enough that we are going to teach them the meaning of the words, or our learners study the meaning of the words, but we have to teach them the usage and how to use that words in their reading, writing, speaking, and listening situation. If we are going to give them activities, make sure that it give them an opportunities to use vocabulary in a many way. The fourth one is review is important. Reviewing the vocabulary from past till the present is important. And it is indeed hard to retain vocabulary, especially if you don't get an enough opportunity to use it. I remember our principal when I was in a senior high school told us that the effective way to retain words is to practice ourselves. Every morning we are going to open a dictionary or a book where we can see words or vocabulary. Then we are going to collect or select a specific word there, and then find the meaning of that words or understand the meaning of that words. Then we need to practice using that words whole day so that we can retain it in another day. So the fifth key principles in teaching vocabulary effectively is involve students in identifying some of the words to be studied. So much vocabulary learning is incidental, but not all our learners are actually or equally good for that kind of learning. Maybe it is tough for some learners or students at that specific learning. So the teachers' techniques or ways to address the words consciousness of our learners is to expose them in a story, reading story. We're going to let them read a story, then find enough prominent words there, and list them in a notebook, and then find the definition or meaning of that vocabulary so that they are going to understand completely that vocabulary. Not just they're not just the meaning of that vocabulary, but also they are going to understand the message of the story they read. So the last thing we are going to tackle this in this lesson is the materials that we are going to use in teaching vocabulary. So there are a lot of materials that we are going to use to teach vocabulary effectively. So first is books, magazines, newspapers, articles, chalk, blackboard, papers, pens, bottle tops, everyday objects, technology of any kind, environment, or human body. So in traditional vocabulary materials is prohibited to printed teaching sources. Like for example, books, newspapers, articles, and magazines. But in broader sense, vocabulary material is any sort of tool that can be used to attain the objectives of teaching. So as a teacher, we should select materials that we are going to provide in our students that can attain the objectives in our lesson, and not also the objective of our lessons, but also the aim to help our students enhance the development of their vocabularies. Additionally, from grounded theory and conceptually driven data analysis, she 2009 highlighted 5 criteria of effective resource selection. She reported that the selected material has to be curriculum appropriate. So if we as a teacher, we are aware that the materials we select and to provide to our students is a curriculum appropriate and can also attain the objectives of our lesson, and also make students interested. So if we are going to provide them materials that look so boring, so our students cannot learn briefly. So if we are going to provide them a materials, it should be, or it should be materials that can catch their attention or interest. So, the third one is balance students' interest in other factors when facing conflicts. So, in selecting materials, it should balance our students' interest and other factors when facing conflicts. So, it is our responsibility, or it is our task as a teacher to balance if there is a conflict between our students and the materials we provided to them. And the fourth one is student appropriate. So if our students is in a secondary level, so we are going to provide them that can suit their level. But if our students is in elementary, then we are going to provide them a materials that is, or that are can suit a students studying in elementary. So the last one is flexible. So the material should be a flexible one. To conclude, learning vocabulary is essential part of a student's development process. But vocabulary instruction can be a challenge for educators or for us as a pre-service teacher, especially when it comes to making it more effective and engaging for our students. That's all for today, and I hope you absorb something on this lesson. Thank you.